Hello, everyone, and welcome to this sit-down chat with myself, Megan Dashkin, my co-founder, Ben Lutz, and our good friend and partner, Lara, who is the founder of GRLbnT. We are so excited to be here with you and to chat a little bit more about where GRLbnT's coming from, where you guys are going, and why exactly we're partnering together. So, Lara, thank you so much for being here and welcome.
No, thank you so much for doing this. It's such a pleasure to be doing this today. And such a great opportunity to be doing a partnership with Fusaic. We really enjoy the work that you're doing and working together. GRLbnT is a social initiative that I founded in March 2020, and we share about travel, culture, arts, personal narratives from the Middle East and North Africa region. And now we're also covering social justice issues as well, which we're really excited about. And we're excited to be doing this partnership along with you. And it was fun getting to meet you through mutual connections, through social media. This world of COVID that we now live in has definitely made us learn to work virtually. So we're excited that we were able to connect with you back in the summer.
Yeah, it was such a wonderful connection. We're both COVID-based media-focused orgs. And so to have that connection point already was really wonderful. And it's just been, we're kind of two arms of the same support for Middle Eastern cultural awareness. And so it's been really wonderful to mirror and highlight each other and really engage. So really great to have you here, Lara. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So you kind of already answered our first question, which is excellent, about how you got started with GRLbnT, but definitely explain more. It's such a really cool story. I think our listeners would love to hear about it.
Yeah, so I moved to Amman in September of 2019, kind of looking for work with NGO, with refugee communities. I was only supposed to do like some type of internship for 4 weeks. I ended up living in Amman for a year. And during that time, in March is when we entered one of the strictest lockdowns in the world for COVID-19. And so I was sort of stuck in the house with some friends. And I stayed in Jordan. I didn't return back to the US, where I'm originally from. And during that time, GRLbnT was sort of developed. And we started doing virtual interviews with Jordanians, asking about their experiences during the lockdown. And these were Jordanians from all sectors, teachers, small business owners, expats, and really getting their perspective during this really unique and challenging time. And so that was how GRLbnT started. Initially, I thought I was going to be a YouTuber and share my travels, and I was going to go all around the MENA region this year. And you know, that didn't happen obviously because of COVID, and due to the lockdown, I sort of had to restructure how this page and platform would work. So that was where the interviews came in. And then we started sharing about culture and travel. And then this summer in Jordan, I think because everybody was locked in their homes, there was some social issues that were going on, especially in regards to honor killings, which is when females are killed by family members, and there's not really strict punishment. So Jordanians were protesting against that this summer when COVID was relatively low. And so we started covering this issue and interviewing women in particular, Jordanian women. And that was sort of how GRL moves more into social justice issues, which I really enjoy covering in this region. So that's a little bit about GRLbnT. It kind of grows with me as I travel because now I have left Amman. So we've covered a little bit of Turkey and Beirut. And yeah, we're just kind of growing as we move forward. But on that note, do you mind sharing about Fusaic and what it hopes to achieve in the future?
Yeah, 100%. I think that your background and GRLbnT's origin story, I guess, has been so fascinating for me and Ben. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to partner with you so badly. We were so excited in the ways that we're a little bit different as organizations, obviously. Fusaic started when Ben and I met at an Arabic language discussion group. We didn't immediately come up with the idea right then and there, but we continued a conversation about how to collaborate with one another. That kind of fed into, I wrote an article on the 2020 US Democratic candidates' Middle East foreign policies, and Ben helped me translate that into Arabic. And we had this conversation about if we wanted to publish it, where we wanted to publish it, but it was a very analytical heavy piece where I wasn't really trying to argue a point. I just wanted people to be able to have discussions and kind of balance this idea of reading the opinion pieces that you saw around the news at the time with also just general information about that. And so when Ben and I started working together, we kind of thought about it, and we both had been part of the NGO sort of think tank space, and we thought maybe there's more need for analysis, and I think Ben, you definitely can take it from here because we have a very long and lengthy history of how we started figuring out names and figuring out what exactly we wanted to be. We've come such a long way from just being an educational cultural resource that started just from wanting to share analysis with our audience.
It's always so great to talk about that path, because seeing where we are now and that one article and all those rejections turned into something super, super great. So thank you everyone for rejecting this really awesome article, because it's now created off Fusaic. Yeah, our name, it's been something really fun to come up with that idea. Megan and I really wanted an Arabizi word, half Arabic, half English, to sort of highlight both Megan and my's non-Arab, non-resident experiences, but as well our multitude of engagements and study, both of our bachelor's and master's degrees and much of our cultural and professional lives have been related to the Middle East. And so we wanted a word that kind of, if we could, encapsulate all of that: a fun cultural engagement, interest of the region, a sort of Arabic component, but also maybe an English one. And so for us, having an Arabizi word was the easiest way to start that process, because it already sort of showcases that cultural combination, that merge of perspectives. Our very first idea, and this is a cute little aside, but I will say it anyways, was going to be Mumtastic, which is Mumtaz and fantastic, which mean the same thing. And as we were, searching if that name or word existed elsewhere, we came across a Midwest Moms Association called Momtastic, and we didn't really want to get into a fight with them. So we're glad that the name is being used. I hope Momtastic is doing well. But we thought maybe we should have a more official sounding name or with a more background. And, we thought, the point about Fusaic is to showcase the beauty of the region. And for at least myself and probably Megan, the first thing I think of when I think of Middle Eastern beauty is the mosaic tile work. It is just absolutely stunning. And I did a whole lesson in my Arabic class about mosaics and just the geometric designs and all of that wonderful, and the geography, sure, whatever. All of it just really, really beautiful. And so it kind of just led to, well, Al-Fusaic is Arabic for mosaic, and you can kind of fit the aic part to the end of that, and Al-Fusaic was born. And so, that was the actual name. It's now turned into, a full article sweep of a website with so much different content, of a growing library of books and movies and TV shows to engage with the culture, historical 101 sections, and just modern articles on any topic you can think of. It's just been incredible to see the transformation, really, from let's just share cool things because we both have spent so much time in the region and want people to engage with it, to now be churning out 15 articles a week on all different topics and grow to 3 official partnerships, GRLbnT being our first and favorite, and just all of the exciting growth has been really wonderful. So that's where we started, and we're excited to see where we go.
No, and that's so impressive. The amount of content that you're coming out with each week is really great. I loved and was attracted to Al-Fusaic because it really is that educational resource, especially for maybe a Western audience. And I feel like that's where we really complement each other, because GRLbnT might have more of a social aspect to it. And it's more of our audience is in the Middle East. And so we're kind of able to collaborate and share our audiences with each other, which has been really great so far. So we love partnering with Al-Fusaic as well.
No, thank you so much, Lara. And there's a huge element to where Ben and I really wanted to kind of grow that out to talk about what you were posting on GRLbnT and to be able to contextualize that for people who have not necessarily had a very deep education in the region, in international politics. There's a lot to be said for open-minded, respectful conversation and dialogue, obviously not giving platforms for hate speech or individuals who denounce the existence or the human rights of others. But I think there's a huge element of people aren't going to change their misconceptions unless they're told to. And so there are plenty of misconceptions out there that people don't even know that they have. Being able to kind of come to GRLbn's page and say, you know, there's this really wonderful social movement, but I have no idea what that's about. Never mind, you know, being able to point to the correct country on a map. And I think that so many people, you know, should have that basic education and access to that basic education. And then to hear all perspectives of a political discussion, of whether that be, you know, the type of language we use in a conflict, or, you know, the ways in like who the sides are, which leaders are representing whom, or what ideals. I think that it's such a diverse region, as we all know. And being able to kind of bring that education to an audience has been really wonderful. And Lara, obviously you're a little bit different than Ben and myself, as we reside in Washington, D.C. So can you tell us a little bit about how your time in the region has influenced your perspective of the cultural intricacies and dynamics of its people?
Yeah, sure. So kind of pulling off of what you just said, I think it is really important, the work that we do and sharing a lot of like what happens on the ground as well, because I know a lot of your content comes from people that are located in these countries or have strong associations with it. And it's important because sometimes media, unfortunately, doesn't always get the Middle East right. In fact, sometimes it gets it really incorrect. And so I am part Arab. My grandfather was from Syria, and I have family that still lives in Syria. And even just living in Amman this last year, it made me realize, you know, the differences and how important it is to get those local narratives out there so that the right information is reaching people that do want to learn about this region. So that's very important. Yeah, so I started GRLbnT because, as I mentioned, I have Syrian roots. Arab culture has been a big part of my life, but I grew up in the States. I was surrounded by it with friends and family. And, you know, always the misconceptions in the US frustrated me. I don't look Arab. So when people would hear that I was part Arab, they would be like, oh, and I'd be like, what do you mean by oh? And so this always, you know, frustrated me. And so I created GRLbnT because I really wanted to show the beauty of the Middle East, you know, because there is so much beauty, and there's so much beauty in the people. You know, you'll find some of the most generous and kind people in the Middle East. And that was really what GRLbnT wants to highlight. And that was what I experienced in Jordan. You know, I miss it because I miss the community that was built there. And sort of by learning and becoming friends with local Jordanians, I was able to learn more about their culture firsthand and learn about the experiences that they have every single day in their country. So this is sort of, you know, how I relate to the region and everything. I wanted to ask you, I think you've touched on it a little bit, but what drew you to the Middle East or North Africa region, you know, to grow Fusaic to the level that it's grown now?
Yeah, I'll start. I spent almost more than half of my undergrad and a half of my master's degree in the region itself. I studied abroad 6 times in undergrad and twice during my master's, all in the region. And I knew it was the only place to actually learn the language, the culture, the community. I am not part anything Arab. I have no familial connections to the region, but I just immediately fell in love with the generosity that you mentioned, the hospitality for sure, the food, absolutely, but also just the historical aspects of the region. I think it's such a foundational area for really all things, especially religion, which was what my main interest was in studying the region. And I kept going because I had the best homestay experiences and wanted to increase my language skills physically in person in the region. And, you know, when I moved to DC to start working full-time post my education, the best way for me to continue that was in an Arabic language group, which is how then I met Meagan. So, I mean, I know her path through the region was similar, is studying abroad and engaging and spending a lot of time, and I'll definitely let her chat more about her experiences there. But for me, it was the best way to really connect to the region was to be there as often as I could. And Fusaic was kind of born out of that I can't physically be in the region right now desire. So I want to share that great wealth of knowledge of my experiences, all my friends' experiences, my host family's experiences, etc. of the region. But also just because this doesn't exist. And I think it's a really important piece to add to the discourse on the region. I mean, both the educational side and the social side need to be there because they aren't. And so those stereotypes and misconceptions are just being perpetuated without the accurate portrayals of life going on in the region. So I'm so grateful to GRLbnT and, you know, being part of Fusaic to really help demystify that narrative, but also showcase the great parts of the region. And, you know, all of my very formative educational and now professional experiences all started abroad in the Arab world. And I'm just so grateful to all of my varied experiences and times there. And Fusaic is a slice of my token of appreciation for all the really beneficial times and growth that I spent there.
So my background, a little bit similar, but also very different. I had taken Chinese for 8 years through elementary, middle school, and high school, and I absolutely hated it. Mostly because I am Chinese, and a lot of people would look at me and kind of ask why I wasn't fluent. And I'm adopted, and so there's a big piece of that kind of identity where I was like, this just doesn't align with who I think I am. When I got to college, I kind of wanted to jump into Arabic as something that was just as complicated as Chinese. I personally think that Chinese is a little bit more difficult to learn, but I wanted to jump into something that was different for sure. When I first kind of wrapped my mind around the idea of focusing on the Middle East or Southwest Asia, in my undergrad, I actually studied abroad. I believe it was my sophomore to junior year. I was at Hebrew University during the summer for an Israeli-Palestinian conflict analysis and resolution course. And so what we did was very much what Fusaic is now kind of built out to be. We traveled around and we talked to organizations. They were mixed organizations from both Israeli and Palestinian sides that were mostly pro-peace. We talked to former IDF generals, we talked to grassroots think tank founders who are really focused on, once again, bringing around peace and dialogue and conversation. And so our professor at the time and we as well, because of this course, really understood the importance of dialogue and collaboration and being able to have a conversation from wildly different viewpoints, perspectives, and backgrounds. And so a lot of that is kind of what fed into why I wanted to work with this region specifically. I studied abroad in Jordan later, and I, once again, as you guys both have mentioned, fell in love with the hospitality, the people, the stories. I mean, it's so incredibly rich, and the community, it's intoxicating almost. You go there and you just kind of want to be a part of it all. And I think that even I mean, we can say like the good, the bad, the ugly, etc. All of that, it's just part of being, you know, a responsible community member of the world. And so being able to understand people who are not necessarily represented as they should be or as they would represent themselves, I think that is so powerful. And so that is why this is something that, you know, you, Lara, and Ben and I have all in common. I think that being able to kind of, you know, advance this conversation is so important, and it's going to be a continual conversation no matter what. So thankfully, there will never be a space for organizations like ours to not exist, because I think that being able to continuously share stories, that's just part of being human, which is so exciting. Lara, one of the things that I wanted to kind of throw over to you, Fusaic audience members generally know what GRLbnT is. We post about you guys a lot. But just to take that a step further, what would you really like the Fusaic community to know about GRLbnT?
So what I want people to know that might not be specified in our message and on our website is that all of the interviews and stories, things that we pull for social justice issues, those are all pulled from people that are on the ground living those experiences. We don't go to news sources to take information. We do fact check to make sure that things sound correct, obviously. But we really do value that local and on the ground narrative, which is what I think makes us unique and also different, because sometimes, like I had mentioned, what you'll see on the news isn't exactly what the people are experiencing, even news that's within that country. So it's important to get those messages of what people are experiencing on the ground out there. Yeah, and I conduct the interviews. It's very, we try to make it as personalized as possible so that people are comfortable, and we're not just going out and searching for information. We really try to build bonds with people and with organizations. So that's something that I really want viewers to know, that it's a labor of love, and that we really do put a lot of time and effort into it. On that note, I wanted to ask sort of what direction Fusaic is headed in the future.
Excellent. I just wanted to step back a little bit and say how cool it is to get those on the ground perspectives. We have writers in the region for sure, but to see the full in-depth spreads of your stories are just so wonderful. So thank you for doing that really important work of gathering the local realities and sharing that widely. That's kind of in a direction that Fusaic wants to head to in a little bit, which is why I mentioned it. One of the biggest things that we hope to host 2021 onwards are political polarization talks. So bringing people from two different sides of whatever issue that may be related to the region to chat with each other, not to convince one another, not to attack or lambast each other, but simply just share their viewpoint so people can hear about it. Again, as we've talked often, there are many misconceptions, known or unknown, probably more unknown, that people have related to the region, and we want to be a chance to educate and share and not sway in any perspective. But this is part A of the story. Here's part B of the story. Let's hear the dialogue. Maybe there's more similarities. Maybe they're even more hating each other. But regardless, they're having a chance to have that effective dialogue and learn from each other. And so we really want that to be kind of the more verbal part of all the articles that we have, is to really engage physically, virtually, but physically with the other viewpoint. And so that's one of the biggest things that we want to do moving forward. We'll have other events and hopefully down the road tours of different aspects of the region. But the biggest thing, first and foremost, is really, again, we're education and culture first and foremost, and having these dialogues and hosting them and facilitating them is a huge part of that mission.
And a big piece that I just wanted to add really quickly was that, Ben and I don't necessarily want to build Fusaic up as like a we know all sort of organization. Obviously, Ben and I do not know everything. And one of the reasons we put this organization together was to learn. And so when people reach out to us and say, hey, something on the website is fully incorrect or dangerous or, harmful for a narrative, I think that Ben and I are very receptive to those. And we just want to encourage people to speak up. And we love receiving emails in our inbox that say, hey, I've engaged with the content, but here are the reasons why I dislike it. And we say, that's amazing. Tell us more. We want to share your perspective as well. And so being that kind of open-minded, respectful, obviously, and knowing when we don't know something, I think that is also a very strong part of Fusaic and the Fusaic community. We talk about this with all of our content writers consistently, because this is not a region or topics that you get into without, getting some flack for saying something incorrect or using the wrong verbiage. I think being very careful and aware and responsible in how we share that information, how we speak to one another, again, is just so, so important.
Yeah, no. Like you said, I have the same thing with GRLbnT. We always have to be kind of on top of it to make sure that verbiage and wording is correct, but at the same time also have that openness to be willing to, say if we do something incorrect, be willing to change it. And I think that there is a beauty in that. And I also love, Ben, how you mentioned the direction that Fusaic is headed with the talks. That sounds so interesting. Really looking forward to seeing that in the upcoming year. So yeah, great work.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited for it. And I think that's kind of what makes both of our orgs so much more special, is our resiliency, is that if we had something wrong or we fixed the verbiage, but we did the wrong verbiage or whatever it may be, to have, hey, this is a really important point, let's share it, let's put some disclaimers on there or rearrange it as it needs to be and have a better dialogue. We have been very cognizant of, there's an editing process to make sure, it reads clean and the grammar's good, but the content is also just as crucial, especially when it comes to all these different aspects. And so, we are very open to having those conversations to change. And it's great to hear that GRLbnT does that too. Again, I think we already knew that, but that's just why this partnership is so strong, because we're both COVID-based, MENA-focused orgs that are responding to the social media virtual world into really, really engaging ways. So
it's really great getting to grow and learn through this process along with you guys. Yeah,
absolutely. It's great to lean on each other too when we need it. I guess to sort of throw it back to you, what direction and even maybe geography is GRLbnT headed?
So GRLbnT is not as good as planning as Fusaic is. GRLbnT kind of follows where I travel to, and since I've left Amman now, it's sort of to be determined what happens next. I was traveling in Turkey and in Lebanon, as I had mentioned, so we're covering those areas right now. But future is sort of to be determined, which can be a little nerve-wracking, but I also think there's a bit of beauty to that as well, to just kind of see where we head next. Definitely interested in focusing on topics though that have to do with COVID and, with the vaccine out now, like covering that and seeing how it's sort of distributed amongst countries and who's getting access to it. Kind of want to follow that within the Middle East and North African region. So I think that's kind of where we're going to be headed next. So stay tuned for interviews and on the ground coverage on that.
Excited to see it happen. This is so wonderful. And I think as we sort of wrap up this incredible chat, everyone please check out GRLbnT's communications. We post about them once a week and they post about us often. It's a really wonderful partnership, but I'm just so excited to see physically where you end up, Lara, but also how GRLbnT continues to really prioritize the local communities of where you end up being. So thank you for being such a wonderful partner and for really adding so much value to the Middle East awareness space. I'm so excited to see the next issues that you cover.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited to continue this partnership and see how Fusaic grows throughout the next year, and seeing how our directions might, go different ways, but still complement each other at the same time. Very excited about that. So thank you.
Thanks again, Lara.
Yeah, thank you so much.